So I want to talk about failure tonight. And failure seems to have a pretty wide experience, right? We have the little failures that nobody seems to notice but us. And then we have the big old take you down to your knees failures that everybody notices, and you get to live those out publicly in really wonderful, glorious technicolors, right? And I want to talk about that because this year is about living an audacious life. And I think that there is a benefit to our soul to have failures. When I was a kid, we went to Yellowstone. And it was like a year after they had this fire. And we went by it, and you could see like little saplings that had started up already. And so for my whole life now, every time we go to Yellowstone, I get to see where the forest is. And the older I get, the taller the trees get, right? But it's a healthy, appropriate part of the whole ecosystem is when there's a fire. And, yes, it can be devastating, and yes, and I'm not making a case for we need to burn everything down. But I do want us to look at our policy on failure. Because whether we realize it or not, most of us have a policy on failure. And the policy can be pretty extensive, but it can either be from no failure is acceptable or failure is just a part of a day. And I want us to look at how you live that. Jalen Hurt, the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, who lost the Super Bowl 10 days ago, said this after the game. You either win or you learn. Right? Very enlightened comment, right? Very enlightened comment. You either win or you learn. Fabulous, right? The great football coach Knute Rockne, 100 years before, said it this way. Show me a gracious loser, and I'll show you a failure. Okay? So in 100 years, we see a little evolution of thought, a little evolution of consciousness. 100 years ago, if you lost, you were a failure. Now, if you have a failure, it's a learning experience, right? He went on to say, we count on winning. And if we lose, don't beef. The best way to prevent beefing is don't lose. Now, how many of you would rather win than lose? The majority of us, right? We would rather win than lose. But I want you to see in our culture today, we pretty much have a no loser policy. Right now in our culture, we have a policy, especially when it relates to kids, that everybody's a winner. Like everybody's a winner, right? And my question is, really? Right? Like really? How do you live that one? Because if everybody's a winner, then winning doesn't mean anything anymore. It really just means that everybody participates. And I want us to really, I know this is going to seem, I don't know how it's going to seem, but we don't all win all the time. Like sometimes we lose. And if everyone is a winner, I believe that whether we win or lose, that we are people of great value, and I believe that we should be loved. And I believe that. But I think that so I've been a minister a long time. Long time. And over the course of my career, I've done a lot of talks. Like on any week, I do multiple talks. I mean, blah, 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 blah. It's always coming out of my mouth, right? And And on a regular basis, I do good talks. Like, I'm proud of the work I do. I take it seriously. I want to make a difference in your life. Thank you. Right? I take it seriously. I want to do a good job for you. I want to make a difference in your life. But sometimes they're stinkers. Right? And if you tell me like when it's a stinker and you say it's a good talk, like, I think you're so concerned about my fragile ego that you think you have to tell me it was a good talk. And early in my career, my ego kind of was that fragile. I was devastated. I was devastated when I didn't think it was a good talk. And the older I got, the more I realized that to live a creative life, you have to be able to tolerate it not working. I always thought it'd be easier to be a painter. Because if a painter paints something and it's not working, they didn't do it in public, right? They can just paint over it and try again, right? I thought that sounded easier than my job, where when I do it, you all know. And there seems to be 3 responses when it's a stinker. The first response is people that just won't look me in the eye. They just want to get out the door without having to make any contact with me at all. It's they know it was bad, I know it was bad, and how do I get to the car as quickly as possible, right? Second response is they'll say, "Oh, good talk." And then I think, well, maybe there was a sentence or a paragraph that might have meant something to them. So, I give them the benefit of the doubt. But deep down in myself, I'm saying, did they really hear it? Were they awake? It wasn't a good talk. And my favorite is when somebody says, "You'll get them next time," right? Because "you'll get them next time," there's an acknowledgement they can look me in the eye, and we're not playing an ego game here. I know it wasn't very good. It wasn't that I didn't try, but sometimes, I think a joke is going to be funnier than you think it is, right? Or the point, it doesn't work. And so I have come to make peace with the fact that it's about a 50-50 shot. Whether it works or whether it doesn't work. And I can live with that, right? And I hope that over the course of my career, that I get more good ones out than I do stinkers, but some weeks it doesn't always feel like that. And so what I want to talk about today, have you developed personally to the point where you can make a mistake, a big mistake even, and know that your value is greater than that? Or are we so in service to our ego that every time we drop the ball, it becomes a crisis of personality? Because I think as a world, spending that much time and energy serving our ego isn't helpful. It's not good. And when you can admit your mistakes, your failings, your drops, your stinkers, it's just so much easier for everybody involved. Where you turn to your neighbor and say, sometimes I make mistakes. When you say that, just sometimes I make mistakes. Now, the person sitting next to you, if they came with you, is not surprised by that. That's not big news. That's I know, I live with them every day, and we survive them, and it's okay, and I still find you adorable. Right? But it's that unwillingness to admit our mistakes or our failings that causes so many problems. as a minister, there's really two sides of my job. There's the speaking in the Sunday service or the Wednesday service or the worship experience. And then there's the running the church part. And to be successful, you really have to be able to do both sides of it. Because if you're really good at the speaking part, but the church isn't run very well, it doesn't last very long. It's not a good thing. So one of the things I've tried to do is take executive development courses and things to just allow me to be better at the business of church. Because, at some level, it is a business, right? So one of these executive development courses, they broke us up into small groups, and we had to define success and failure. And honestly, I don't remember what we came up with the definition of success, right? It was just blah, 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 right? The definition of failure that the group was coming up with was it's a learning experience. Yeah, okay, right? It's a learning experience. Yeah, all right. I said, because it is me, I said, well, in my experience in business, that it's not learning fast enough. Like in a changing world, for us to succeed, we have to learn fast. And if we're not learning fast, we are in the process of potentially failing. And as I presented my idea, and I made a case for it, because I can, we spent some time that afternoon talking about 6 questions that we'd come up with. And I want to share those with you because they took the workshop in a different direction, and the presenter thought it was a better direction. At least that's what he said to my face. So I want to share these questions with you, right? And it's, how am I challenging myself to learn every day? Because if we are going to live our best life, if we are going to get the best out of ourselves, how do we challenge ourselves to be learning every day? Because the world is changing, and it's changing at an accelerated rate. So how do I challenge myself every day to be learning? That was one. Who am I not listening to but should be? Because it's always easy to listen to the people who agree with us. Right? It's just easier to listen to the people that tell you you're right. And in any organization, any situation, I believe that we can't just listen to the people that are easy to listen to. We have to be listening to the people that are hard for us to listen to, because oftentimes they have a point that we clearly do not want to hear. The next question was, what new information is available to me now? I love that question. Because it invites us just to take a step back and not just listen to the noise, but say, what is the new information that is available to me now, and am I willing to access it? What am I not paying attention to in my organization that could be problematic? Because in my experience, in most organizations, there's always somebody that's talking about the problem before it blows up. They're always there, saying, wait, we got to pay attention. Nobody here. In Southwest Airlines, how many are aware that Southwest Airlines had a bit of a problem over this Christmas season, right? And what's interesting is the pilots union have been saying this for years, that there's a problem, right? And if we don't want to listen to that, then we get issues. Like thousands of people not getting home for Christmas or not getting back to work in January, right? So that's part of it. And the last one is, where am I resistant to learning? And I want you to look at this, because I think that as a community, we have an opportunity to actually challenge ourselves. And really what it is, it's challenging our ego to embrace the failures, but actually to learn at a deeper, more profound level, instead of just assuming that by the time we graduate from high school, we have already got it all figured out. Because I don't think we do. Malcolm X said it this way: children have a lesson adults should learn. To not be ashamed of failing, but to get up and try again. Most of us adults are so afraid, so cautious, so safe, and therefore so shrinking and rigid and afraid. That is why so many adults fail. Most middle-aged adults have resigned themselves to failure. That's a tough comment. I wonder how many 40-year-olds would be willing to learn to walk again. One of my wife's clients had a stroke. She's 75. And it was devastating. It was a devastating stroke. And at 75, she had to decide if she was going to learn to walk again. And at 75, she said, I don't care what it takes. I want to learn to walk again. And she had to risk every day in therapy, every day getting up with falling and everything that it takes. And she was willing to do it because she had a clear sense that it was possible. Do you know the average baby, the average child, when they're learning to walk, falls 17 times an hour? That's some boom, right? And what I want you to see is that as we get older, we get more and more safe. We get more and more that we shouldn't fail, that it's got to be just right, and it's got to be perfect every time. But life is messy. And I think our soul actually needs to fail on a regular basis so that we learn that we're not in service to our ego, that we came to express our spirit, and that our spirit really doesn't care if we fall down once or twice, because our spirit knows that we came for something better than just to glorify our personality. And I know your personality is charming. But hopefully we are infinitely more than that. You know, I played sports most of my life, and all through, as a child, all the way through college. And one of the things that I remember is playing Little League at 9 or 10, playing first base because I was always tall. And the other team was at bat, and a mom from, one of the moms from the other team yelled at her son who was walking up to the plate, "If you don't get a hit, no dinner for you." Wow. I mean, I was on first base and I was traumatized. So ask me if he got a hit. No, he didn't get a hit. He went back to the dugout crying. And the whole place was in, like, we're all going, "I'll feed him," or, you know, I got $1 for a hot dog or whatever it was, because it was traumatizing. Like, over and over again, it was traumatizing. Do you know what a great batting average is? Like, anything over 300. Anything over 300 is a great batting average. And that means that you're going to fail 70% of the time. We have to make peace with failures. Now, does that encourage failures? No, but it actually allows us to endure them in a more creative, sustainable way to live a greater life. That we have to open a space to be more than that. You know, and the other side doesn't really work as well. So when little Johnny's going up to the plate and you say, "Johnny, you can hit a home run. I believe in you. You can do it." And little Johnny on the inside's going, "No, I can't," right? Little Johnny just wants to know that he's going to be loved whether he hits it or he strikes out. So we don't need a home run. We just need to know that we're loved no matter how it goes. That unconditional love really is the transformative tool that allows us to move from ups and downs of our wins and our defeats into a life that is meaningful, where we're no longer just in service to our ego, hoping we look good enough to not be shamed by the people around us. Where we just get to be loved just the way we are. Paulo Coelho said this: "The secret of life is to fall 7 times and to get up 8. Falling is never the problem. The problem is that when you give up on yourself, when you give up on your dreams, when you give up on the possibilities, when you give up and you stop getting up because you're afraid if you get up, you could risk falling again. And I guarantee that if you're living your life at your most creative, dynamic level, you are going to fail. It is a part of the process. You actually need to embrace it so that you can get over yourself and be your most creative self. J.K. Rowling said it this way: it's impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not live at all, in which case you have failed by default. I love that, right? I want us to give ourselves permission to live a life where it's okay to have a big vision, to know that we're swinging for the moon, and even if we only get halfway, we still hit it out of the park. That our lives are not defined by small little wounded egos, that we are here for something far greater than that. Ellen DeGeneres said this: when you take risk, you learn that there will be times when you succeed and there will be times when you fail, and both are equally as important. Oprah said it this way: failure is another stepping stone to greatness. And Michael Jordan said it this way: I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I can't accept not trying. So tonight, I want you to look into those areas in your life where you have lived too small, where you have challenged yourself to do life perfectly, organized, and see that there is more creativity, there's more passion, there's more aliveness. That when we take this discussion in a spiritual direction, I believe that we all have high goals, high desires, and as we commit to them, as we truly commit to them, as we turn them over to God, and daily as we listen for guidance and direction, and as we begin to take action toward the desires that we want to achieve, there's going to be times when it doesn't work. And that's okay, because our faith is not in the short-term step, it's into the long-term result. See, whatever is the most important thing to you, whatever that is, it doesn't matter how many times you take the wrong turn. As long as you get to the destiny, to your purpose, to your vision that you've been holding all the time, if every step has to be perfect along the way, you spend so much time in each little step that you forget about the real thing that was the most important to you. Will you say with me, I forgive myself for every failure. Together? I forgive myself for every failure. One more time. I forgive myself for every failure. I give thanks for everything I've learned. Together? I give thanks for everything I've learned. And everyone who has loved me along the way. Together? And everyone who has loved me along the way. And I commit to the greatness of God. Together? And I commit to the greatness of God. Can we take that into prayer? I want you to open your mind, your heart, your soul. And I want you to see all your failures. All of them. And I want you to see if you can look at them without shame. Just to be with them. And realize every one of those failures and every one of your successes has brought you to this moment of who you are today. And when you look at your successes and when you look at your failures, you are looking at the past. And when you turn your vision to the present and to the future, there is no limit to who you could be. So we make room for all the steps, the entire process of our soul awakening. And tonight we give thanks that I truly am more than my successes, and I am more than my failures. And so it is. Amen.